What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for July 17th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the podcast. Happy Hump Day. We're back at the home studio, and knock on wood for now, the power is on. Apparently, the past few days, while we're away, there were some issues with the Pico grid underground or something, so we were without power, then we were having power. We had to throw some stuff out of the fridge, but it seems we are back on and we are good. There might be still some rolling brownouts, so if you do happen to get this later or you see some glitches, that is why. Thank you for putting up with my voice and my sickness. Of course, right before we went away to Ocean City, I woke up with a terrible summer cold. So that is why some of the quality was not as good with my voice. But we are back. It is Hump Day. And we're officially in the dog days. And I've been saying that for a while. But I feel that there's nothing today or tomorrow other than maybe some NBA, Summer League, WNBA, and MLS soccer. So it's the cupboard is bare, so to speak, when it comes to all things Philly sports. But we will make it through. And a lot of people say that post-Super Bowl sort of starts the sports new year, so to speak. And for me, this is sort of post and Major League Baseball All-Star break, to me, is what starts the new sports year. Because at this point, this is like that week in between Christmas and New Year's where nobody does anything. Some people work, some people don't. Everybody's drunk, everybody's eating. And there's really nothing to do but eat or drink, and that's kind of where we are in the sports world. But come Friday, second half push for Major League Baseball gets underway. Training camps are starting to get underway later this week for NFL. You still have the Summer League, WNBA, and things like that, but we have a focus. People start prepping for football season, and then the fall is sort of where it takes off. So for me, this is that week in between New Year's and Christmas. Hopefully you don't eat too much or get too drunk. And it also doesn't help that it's like 105 degrees outside with like 110 humidity. So we will make it through. Friday is our Happy New Year for the sports year, and we'll get underway there. Quick update from yesterday's podcast. As I always say, and I mentioned yesterday during the Tuesday motivation, I always strive to make sure everything is correct. Excuse me, the cold is still getting to me. But I did have the right stat. Just couldn't read my own writing. Ryan Howard had his 200th home run in his 658th game, not his 686th, which I said. Just couldn't read my own writing. Still not, maybe I just looked at it too quick. But Ryan Howard was the fastest to 200 home runs, 658 games it took him to get there. Even more impressive and just a testament to how well he was. Lots of feedback on whether or not he or Donovan were more underrated. Lots of Donovan hate, as I kind of expected. A lot of people said Howard struck out too much, but I think he was ahead of his time. And if he played in today's Major League Baseball, where not allowed to play the shift as much as they did back then, I think his average would be higher. But for my money, Ryan Howard, most underrated, underappreciated Philadelphia athlete of all time. Before we get into the All-Star game, just wanted to say RIP to Joe Jellybean Bryant, who was in our Ultimate Nickname tournament. He did die on Monday. He's a Philly Public League legend, went to Bartram, was a star at LaSalle, played for the Sixers, and is obviously probably more known as Kobe's dad. But Joe Bryant died on Monday. Philly, like I said, Philly Public League and college Big Five legend. So rest in peace to Joe and his family. We send our condolences to them. All right, All-Star game. And there's a lot of talk about this, and I think for my money, it's the most entertaining of all the All-Star games because the players actually play. But give me your thoughts on that. Is the Major League Baseball the best All-Star game of the four majors? 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Get that. Anything else Philly sports related? Want to continue the conversation on Ryan and Donovan? want to give thoughts on Joe Jellybean Bryant, everything's fair game. 267-495-8531. You can leave a voicemail. You can text. Whatever you got to do to get your thoughts heard. But as far as the game, the Phillies All-Stars definitely represent it. Trey, Bryce, and Alec all had hits. Sanchez, Strom, and Hoffman pitched a combined 1 1/3 inning, had a strikeout, gave up no runs. So the Phillies did what they needed to do with their All-Star representatives, which is pretty cool. The American League did win 5-3, which I teased up the under to 8.5. So I did win a little bit of money on the All-Star game. But there is nothing now for 2 days. 2 days off. Hopefully that'll give JT's knee some time to recover. It'll give Rangers back. Zach Wheeler's back. Everybody just time to rest, and they come out on fire Friday out in Pittsburgh. I've been talking to you about the John Kruk shirt at Philly Goat. Since there's nothing going on, this is the perfect time to go to Philly Goat, buy the John Kruk is My Spirit Animal shirt, help out the Battle Brothers Foundation, which does great things for our vets. 10% of your purchase of the John Kruk is My Spirit Animal shirt will go toward that great organization. And while you're there, check out the other stuff. They have kid sizes. Start doing some early school shopping for your kids. Have them ready for October when the Phillies go on hopefully what is a long postseason run to bring home the championship. But go to phillygoat.com. Be sure to use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. Use only that promo code because that is what we get credit for, and it helps grow our podcast and let Ryan and the people over at Philly Goat know that you are a listener. And also, it's a good time to check out my boys over the Clashing Conferences podcast. They started their baseball edition of the podcast. Still have not gotten through the whole episodes just because I was away, but from what I've seen and heard so far, they're doing a great job. So go check them out, the Clashing Conferences podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Sixers Summer League, they won, so they're 2-1. I'm not really sure how it works out there. I think there is like a playoff sort of system, but Sixers are right there. But more importantly, Jaren McCain had 21, shot 5 for 16, but from what I was looking at and able to see in highlights, he was able to get to the line. He was aggressive, and I think with just consistent reps, the shots will eventually fall. He's a shooter. I don't think at this point, I know we have PTSD from Ben and Markelle Fultz. I don't think this is anything like that where we have to worry about. He's just trying to get his legs, get used to it, because he's still being aggressive. He's not hiding like Ben. He didn't forget how to shoot. He's just not making the shots right now. But again, I think they'll come. But I like his aggressiveness and the way he's been playing out there. So that will be a welcome kid off the bench for this Sixers team. But I think they're off tonight, and they pick back up on Thursday. Union are back in action tonight up in New England, or at Subaru Park versus New England. This is another winnable game that they need to kind of start turning it around. It's not too late for them to go on a nice little run, but let's hit the ground running today. Get the crowd off your back, because as bad as everybody is not happy with the ownership and the way they're putting together the team, winning will fix a lot of that. So let's jump on them early tonight. Down at Subaru Park, Union takes on the New England Revolution in a game that they can win, should win, and need to win. And as I mentioned, we are officially less than a week away from Eagles training camp, and to me, that is sort of that symbolic start of the new sports year. We're officially like that halfway point of summer. I know that a lot of the teachers out there, a lot of the kids out there don't want to hear that, but for people like me who work all year round, I'm sick of 100-degree weather. Give me a 20-degree cold, whatever you want to call it, cold front, cold streak, code blue, whatever. Give me that, because this is absolutely ridiculous. It's like soup outside. But less than a week before the Eagles start training camp. All right, today we're going to hop in our Wayback Machine and go all the way back to 1918. And on this day in 1918, the Phillies lost to the Cubs 2-1 at Wrigley Field in Chicago. But the story was the starting pitchers who put on a clinic. Phillies pitcher Milt Mule Watson, how's that for a nickname, gave up a run in the first inning and then pitched 19 scoreless innings after that before giving up the game-winning run in the bottom of the 21st inning. You heard that right, the 21st inning. And then for the Cubs, George Lefty Tyler gave up a run in the fourth and then pitched 17 scoreless innings himself. Yes, both of these pitchers pitched 21 innings that day. Pitchers were just built different back then. But the 21-inning game took 4 hours to complete, and to this day is still the longest game innings-wise that the Phillies have ever played in. I believe the Cubs played in a couple of 22 innings when I was looking it up. But on this day, back in 1918, the Cubs beat the Phillies 2-1 out at Wrigley Field, which I think it was called something else back then, but essentially it was Wrigley Field. In 21 innings, both starting pitchers went the distance in the game, and to this day, it is the Phillies' longest game in franchise history, innings-wise. All right, on to the Ultimate Philly Sports Nickname Tournament, and today is the last day of the second round. Tomorrow kicks off the Sweet 16, and trust me when I say the Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four, and everything, that's going to go fast. But let's recap yesterday's matchups. Out of the Ben Franklin region, the Boston Strangler had no problem with the Kangaroo Kid winning with 73% of the vote. And then over in the Cheesesteak region, it was more of the same. Charles Barkley, the round mound of rebound, had no issues with the Secretary of Defense, winning with 78% of the votes. So two Sixers moving on, the Boston Strangler and the round mound of rebound. The Boston Strangler will take on Smokin' Joe, which should be a very good matchup. And then Charles Barkley, the round mound of rebound, will take on Chocolate Thunder. I'm excited to see that matchup. Tomorrow, we'll spend some time going over the Sweet 16 matchups before we go in, because truthfully, there won't be anything else to talk about, and I don't want to give you a 2-minute podcast. But let's go into the final day of the second round, and out of the Balboa region, we have the number 2 seed, the Flyin Hawaiian, taking on the number 7 seed, Gang Green. Let's start with the Flyin Hawaiian. Shane Victorino was a huge part of that 08 championship team. Played 2005 to 2012 with the Phillies, made 2 All-Star games, won 3 Gold Gloves. Probably known for that 2008 playoff run. He hit the big grand slam off of CC Sabathia in the NLDS. And then he hit the game-tying home run against the Dodgers, leading to Matt Stairs dramatics out there in Game 4. Traded back to the Dodgers and then won a World Series with Boston in 2013. We don't necessarily need to focus on that. Let's focus on 08. But the origin of his nickname stems from the way he plays his game and the fact that he is a native of Hawaii. And for me, the lasting image is him, Jimmy Superflying Snuka, the pile after winning the 2008 World Series. And whenever I hear the name Flyin Hawaiian, that is the picture that comes into my mind. But he is the 2 seed out of the Balboa region, taking on the number 7 seed, Gang Green, which was the nickname for that 91 Eagles defense. But to me, I think it kind of embodies the whole Buddy Ryan, Rich Kotite era defense before those guys started leaving. And for my money, that 91 team, I tell you, there's certain things in life Philly sports life, I should say, that I will go to the grave saying, one, Donovan McNabb is an underrated, underappreciated quarterback. Ryan Howard is the most underappreciated Philadelphia athlete of all time, and the 1991 Eagles defense is the best defense ever put together on a field, period. And if you want to argue with me on that, that's perfectly fine. 267-495-8531. That is your way to argue with me. Text me, voicemail me, tell me I'm crazy, but those are the 3 things. You know how they say death, taxes, and something else? Usually, to me, it's Donovan, Ryan, 91 Eagles. Boom. But like the memes say, prove me wrong. But the reason I say that, though, is honestly they were number 1 across the board in yards allowed, total, running, and passing. There were better passing defenses of all time. There were better rushing defenses of all time. There were better scoring defenses of all time. But the fact that they had no quarterback, so they had a ton of pressure. They had to go out there and perform every day. They could not have off days, because had they had any off days, that team would have gotten blown out. The only game I remember them getting in a shootout with was the game out in Cleveland, and somehow the offense was able to put up enough points, but I think the defense played a big role in that in the second half. But they sent 5 guys to the Pro Bowl. Reggie, Jerome Brown, Clyde Simmons. 75% of their starting defensive line went to the Pro Bowl. Seth Joyner and Eric Allen were the other 2. They were 5th in points allowed, which is solid. Nothing great. Like I said, there's been better teams. There were better teams in 1991 with giving up points. But when you don't have a quarterback, when you're putting Brad Gable and old, aging, hurt Jim McMahon and Jeff Kemp and Pat Ryan, and you're throwing those guys out there, and your defense is still 5th in points, and you still win 10 games, that's a testament to how good that defense was. And the offense, for what it's worth, was number 18 overall in points scored. And at the time, there was only 28 teams in the league. But we know Randall got hurt first game of the season. And then all of that goodwill that they had built up, Jerome Brown passed away that offseason, so they were never able to really back it up. But that is our matchup out of the Balboa region. You have the number 2 seed, the Flyin Hawaiian, taking on the number 7 seed, Gangrene. Who do you got? What is a better Philly sports nickname? 267-495-8531. Get your vote in. You can always hit me up on social media as well. Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok, at Philly Jimbo on Instagram. I got to look at trying to just do it at Philly Jimbo. I'll work on that. But you can also hit me up on Facebook, LinkedIn, anything, any way you can. Email me, whatever you got to do. Get your vote in. And then our final matchup of the second round is out of the Schuylkill region. The number 3 seed, Chooch, takes on the number 6 seed, Puddin, in a matchup of funny nicknames for the Phillies. This ought to be a good one. Let's start with Chooch. Carlos Ruiz played from 2006 to 2016. He was a 2012 All-Star for the Phillies. No gold gloves, despite being technically the ace of that pitching staff. Everybody from whoever came in, whether it was Roy Halladay, Cole Hamels, Brett Myers, they all talked about how good Chooch was calling games. And ultimately the leader of the staff, and really, I think, is one of the more underrated pieces. Excuse me. One of the more underrated pieces of that 2008 team. He is a world champion in 2008. And I got some clarification on the origin of his nickname. Apparently, it is a Colombian word for underarm odor, chucha, that Antonio Alfonseca called him in an interview one time as a joke. Teammates picked up on it, and it just stuck. It became Chooch. So Antonio Alfonseca, which I believe had 6 fingers on his hand, is the reason for Chooch being called Chooch. But Chooch is caught 4 no-hitters, 2 by Roy Halladay, technically 2 by Cole Hamels, even though one of them was combined. He is tied for the Major League with Jason Varitek for that. He was the last guy of that '08 Phillies team to leave. Got to meet him last year at the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame ceremony. Great guy, but Chooch is our number 3 seed out of the Schuylkill region. He is taking on Willie Puddinhead Jones, who spent 13 years in Philly from 1947 to 1959, played third base, and was a big part of that 1950 Whiz Kids team. Hit .258 with the Phillies with 180 homers, 753 RBI, added over 200 doubles. Wasn't necessarily the greatest offensive guy, but he was a great defender, had a good arm, had good range, made 2 All-Star teams. He is in the Phillies Wall of Fame, had a career year in 1950, 25 homers, 88 RBI, and until last season held the Phillies record for hitting streak to start the season with 16 games. If you remember, that was a big deal. That's what put Puddinhead on our radar, was when Bryson Stott beat that record to open up last season. Got his name from the 1930 song Woodenhead, Puddinhead Jones, partly because he had a southern drawl and just kind of moved about slowly when he wasn't on the field, but he had some good range on the field. But Puddinhead Jones is our number 6 seed out of the Schuylkill. Now it's your turn. Which is the better Philly sports nickname? We got Chooch versus Puddin, and then we got the Flyin Hawaiian versus Gangrene. Get those votes in on any of my social media, 267-495-8531. That is the Back to the Future voice and text line. Call me, text me. Get me anything else Philly sports related off your chest. Tell me how wrong I am for my 3 guaranteed truths in Philly sports. Donovan McNabb is the most underrated quarterback player in Philadelphia sports history, or in Eagles history. Ryan Howard is the most underappreciated. I don't think we knew what we had until it was gone. And the 91 Eagles defense is the greatest defense in NFL history. Tell me how wrong I am, but let's have some fun with this on a day where there's really nothing going on Philly, because the Sixers don't even play Summer League. So there's literally nothing going on in Philly sports today. So let's have some fun with that. Get your nickname votes in. Tell me how wrong I am. What are your 3 truths of Philly sports? Whatever we got to do. Let's have some fun. On this day, 1918, Phillies lost to the Cubs 2-1 in 21 innings. It is their longest game in franchise history innings-wise, and both starters went complete games, which makes that even better. Won't really have much to update tomorrow other than the Union, but hopefully they can get back on the winning side of things. Let's send some healing and rest good whatever vibes to the Phillies pitchers, so their back injuries, their arms, everything sort of rest. They come out on fire against the Pirates. Going to get to see Paul Skeens, it looks like, which looking forward to. I mean, the dude is a stud. Be sure to check out Philly Goat. Check out my boys at Clashing Conferences and try to stay cool out there. It does seem that relief is on the way, but one more day of sweating it out and getting through it. But this has been This Day in Philly Sports History for July 17th, 2024. I'm Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Wednesday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.